Hi there, my name's John Silver and I will be showing you how to paint a Border Collie puppy in oils using a two-part method. Now the first part of this two-part method is doing the underpainting, and this is done in a monochrome using raw umber, titanium white and a little bit of Liquin original. And then the second part, once that is dry, will be done with glazing. We'll be glazing over the top to produce the colour. So let's crack on with the first part. Okay, the first part is to do the underpainting. Now what we'll do with this is establish the dark areas first. So here we go. So we'll get a small brush, a little bit of raw umber. That's like this, just a little bit of raw umber. A little bit of Liquin original. We'll just start putting in these darker areas. Not too concerned with detail at this point. This isn't the best brush in the world, but it doesn't matter. The old masters used to manage with their own handmade brushes, so I think we should be able to do better with the brushes we have these days. Roughly some darker areas. Right. Before we carry on, I'm now going to do something to the background because it needs a background. So we have to establish where the light areas on the dog are going to be so that we can make a good contrast by putting some darker areas in the background. Get a decent brush. A nice worn one will do. I love old worn brushes. Never throw a brush away. I have never thrown a brush away ever. And you shouldn't, because they will always come in useful for something. So this is mainly a dark area. So we will put in some darker areas here. I've already got the drawing drawn onto the board. What I'm using here is a gesso board, one that I've made myself, a gesso panel using MDF, and then several coats of gesso, and then a light grey acrylic over the top, just to give it a basic ground. Now I'll do a video showing you how I make these gesso panels, because they're beautiful to paint on. We'll start bringing a little bit of lighter areas into this. Now, it has got quite a light area around here, so we'll keep this reasonably dark. There's a bright area up here. We can go a little bit lighter. We use raw umber and white because, well, you can use black and white as well, I suppose. But raw umber and white is a little bit warmer. Black and white will tend to produce quite a cool blue tone. And I like a nice warm tone to paint on. A little bit darker. You have to forgive me, I don't normally hold a palette like this. I normally have it on a little table or a trolley here. But for these purposes, I'm going to try and hold it and show you what I do. This is a way of painting using techniques of the old masters, but using modern materials. I'm using an alkyd paint, which will dry very, very quickly. And what they used to use, of course, would be a tempera, an egg tempera colour, which would dry almost as quickly as, well, probably even quicker, faster than acrylics would. You can do this underpainting in acrylics if you wish. Nothing to stop you doing that. It's just that I like the feel of oils. I'm just going to put a few little blurry, darker areas in here just to show, just to give it a little bit of interest in the background. Same with white, we'll put some lighter areas in. Like that, just blend these slightly. Now that's just producing a little background with a little bit of interest, but it's also going to show me my contrasts. So while that's wet, I'll now get a fan brush. This is a fan brush, and or a blender, and we will just start to just slowly soften these. It's almost as if you're looking at something that's gone out of focus. Now what this will do is it will throw the painting of the dog forward, because the dog is going to be quite sharply painted and the background can be soft. As you get closer towards the bottom, you might put some blades of grass in or some leaves just to show the depth of field. Now this is my way of painting, of course. As I say, it's based on the way the old masters would have painted. Using a monochrome first, they would have done the entire painting in monochrome. And then when the monochrome painting's dry, they would have laid the colour over the top. Now this is how they could produce fantastically large paintings, the size of walls, in such a short time, because it's a very, very fast way of painting. Of course, you could do this alla prima, which is all in one go, but you have more control over it this way. So there we have the background. It's rough, but it'll do the purpose that it's designed for, which is to throw the image of the dog forward. Now this is Jackson's raw umber, their own make. So I use that, and I also use Winsor & Newton Griffin Alkyd Titanium White. That's their stuff. Now this, when added to the raw umber, converts the raw umber into an alkyd paint. It's a fast drying colour already, being an earth colour, but adding titanium white alkyd to it enables it to dry even faster. Now I'm not using any linseed oil or anything like that, which would slow the painting down. So I will add just a tiny touch of white, just a tiny touch of white, just to introduce that alkyd into the paint. So now we're just going to, now the beauty of what you can do with a worn brush is you can do this type of thing. See? Which produces the feel of the fur. Again, I'm just interested in knocking in the basic shapes. add a little bit of white to this now. And go a little bit more whitish grey. Perhaps a little more. Not light enough. The more we've got that, we can just start to introduce a little bit of... You will be glazing over the top of this in colour. So these won't show up quite so much. Right, now if we have any other darker areas, we do. We've got this little dark area here for the mouth. So we'll just roughly put that in there like that. And we'll start laying in this darker area here for the shadow of the fur. Should be slightly darker actually. Okay, like that. Now if we glaze over the top, we're going to be glazing white colours over the top of this, very light colours. So you can afford to go slightly darker. Like this, and we will I'll tell you what, I need a little bit more Liquin. Liquin Original. Just a little bit. Because otherwise it will make it a bit too liquid. And we don't want it being liquid. We want a little bit of body in the colour. Into a little lighter colour here. Introduce little bits into this as fur. Starting to see some little shapes appearing now. Now we start to get a little bit more detail down here. This needs to be a little bit lighter. Like that, you see? So fur flows over the ear in a curvy sort of a manner. So you let the brush follow those same curves. The beauty of oils, of course, is if you make a mistake, you can just rub it out if necessary. If you don't like what you've done. Now with a pure white, I'm going to do this with a bristle brush, cheap bristle brushes, very cheap bristle brushes. But the beauty of these is they produce irregular shapes. I'm going to use the titanium white pure because I like to give the whites body. Now when you're doing these paintings, you should always remember that the dark areas should be thin and the light areas should be thick, so have more body. So we'll just start putting, so this is just pure titanium white. What we'll do now is we can change from that to just a little worn brush, a little worn round brush, because I just need to just add a little bit of fur. Now I use a maul stick for this bit. This is just to steady the hand. You see, an old brush is great for this type of thing. It just splays out naturally and allows you to do lots and lots of fur. Looks like you're doing lots of fur, but you're not actually doing very little indeed. It's just where the light's catching it, like that. Go back to the large brush now as we're doing a few little bits like this. Back to the thin brush, small brush, not thin, and we'll just add a few. Do this randomly. We can also take some in here as well. Do it this way, just to soften that basic edge. We'll do that here. Now, we'll just add a few little highlights with this brush. You see it's slowly beginning to take shape. Yeah. There's a little eyelid comes over here, like this. A little bit of a white of the eye there. A little bit there. Slightly off dark, so that we're not using totally dark. There's a little bit of titanium white in it, but we could do a little bit more. Like that. And if necessary, you can use your finger and smudge just to give it a little bit of a... If you want to soften an edge, it's very good for that. Titian used to paint with his fingers towards the end of his life. Some of the large paintings that you see in the galleries are actually produced with his fingers. Next time you go to a gallery and you see a Titian, just have a look very closely. I like looking very closely at paintings. When I go to galleries, I like looking very closely. I like to see how the old masters did it. So we're just qualifying areas here. So far so good. Just darken this area. I have a few little dark areas where the whiskers come out. Like that. Just darken up some of these little areas now. What I'll do first is the light's coming from behind it, so I'll have a little light there and another little light, less light, just there. It's not as light. See? So now when I place pure white, this little light there, we'll make that sing. We'll put a bit there, we'll put a bit here in the corner of the eye. That should come down there like that. Okay. Just push a bit into that. You can add one or two little details with this type of brush if you wish at this stage. Now while we're on the light colour, we will get that other brush, just add a few more of these things. We do need to go a little bit whiter there. Like so. Now, for the little whiskers and tiny little areas, I like to use a rigger brush. This is a rigger, very fine, so we need to have a few little stray hairs. There will always be stray hairs on dogs. You will never find a perfectly smooth dog. Perhaps smooth coats might be a little bit less rough, but generally they're as smooth. They're as fine hairs. So. Like this. And it's all a little bit rough. Now then, also put some little slightly off-white. This rough brush, a worn brush, just to soften those areas. What I'm now going to do is put the dark into the white as well. This helps to soften those areas. Or you can use your finger and just blur it slightly. Just where this transition is between the light and the dark should be exaggerated slightly. There we go. So there we go. That is basically the underpainting. That is stage one of the painting. Now we will let that dry. It might take a few hours to do. We'll let it dry overnight and we'll carry on with the colour. So see you soon.